What if the greatest inventions in history died in silence, just because no one was around to hear them? Imagine a scientist in ancient Peru discovers a way to preserve food for months. Brilliant, right? But halfway across the world, Roman soldiers are still dying from spoiled rations, and they never even hear about it. That's the tragedy of a disconnected world. Not the lack of genius, but the lack of shared genius. For most of human history, we weren't just separated by geography. We were divided by oceans, deserts, languages, ideologies, and, let's be real, some very questionable cartography. But in today's world, a teenager in Nairobi can build an app that helps farmers in Vietnam. A language can go viral. A cat video can spark a global meme economy. So how did we get from tribal isolation to TikTok globalization? And why did we need to become more interconnected, urgently? Let's jump into the long, bumpy story of how humanity learned to talk to itself, and what happened when it didn't. Part 1. When the world was silent. Let's go back, way back. In the beginning, early humans lived in scattered bands. Think 150 people, tops. That's actually supported by a cognitive theory called Dunbar's number. It suggests that the human brain can only maintain stable relationships with about 150 people. Beyond that, things get chaotic. So small tribes hunted, gathered, and invented things like tools and fire, but only for their group. The wheel? Invented independently multiple times, because no one was texting each other cave selfies saying, "Bro, check out this sick circle I made." Now, imagine that level of disconnection, multiplied across thousands of years. You get independent innovation, but not accelerated progress. Because when ideas don't spread, they stagnate. It's like every civilization is trapped in its own escape room, solving the same puzzles over and over. And no one's allowed to share the answers. And the consequences? Massive. Entire empires rose and fell, unaware of what others had already figured out. In Mesoamerica, the Mayans invented complex calendars and math. In China, they developed compasses and printing. In the Middle East, algebra and astronomy were booming. But these cultural achievements often stayed local, because they were locked behind the Great Wall of isolation. It's like humanity had all the puzzle pieces, but no table to put them together. Part 2. The high cost of disconnection. Now, let's talk real-world consequences of this lack of interconnectedness. 1. Transboundary problems, zero coordination. Let's say a plague hits one country. If there's no network to share the cause, the cure, or even the news, it spreads fast. That's what happened during the Black Death in the 14th century. It killed 75 to 200 million people. And the terrifying part? No one knew what it was, where it started, or how to stop it. If Europe had better connections with Asia, where the plague likely originated, they might have had early warnings. But without international cooperation, it became the deadliest pandemic in human history, before COVID. 2. Technological redundancy. Consider this. The printing press was invented in China centuries before Gutenberg's version in Europe. Same goes for gunpowder, paper, even suspension bridges. Why didn't Europe adopt these technologies earlier? Because the flow of information was slower than a turtle texting in Morse code. Every isolated society had to reinvent the wheel, literally and metaphorically. It's like running a race where every runner is building their own shoes from scratch. 3. Economic development? More like economic delay. Lack of access to global markets meant entire regions couldn't trade efficiently. For example, Sub-Saharan Africa had rich resources and brilliant innovations, but with minimal maritime contact and limited infrastructure, they were largely excluded from early global trade. It's like owning gold, but having no way to reach the bank. Without interconnectedness, wealth couldn't circulate, investments didn't happen, and entire economies stagnated, not because they weren't capable, but because they weren't connected.
Yay!
4. Cultural isolation. Conflict fertilizer. When people don't know each other, misunderstandings thrive. Stereotypes become reality. Wars start over perceived threats or outright confusion. A lack of cultural exchange means no empathy, no understanding, and, sometimes, no peace. Just think of how many conflicts in history began because of basic ignorance about another group's customs, beliefs, or intentions. As the saying goes, we fear what we don't understand. And for most of history, we didn't understand anyone outside our own borders. Part 3. How we finally started talking to each other. Then, things changed. Enter trade routes, colonization, maritime empires, the printing press, and later, telegraph lines, radio, TV, and eventually, the Internet. But even before that, globalization got a jump start from one weird, wild theory. World systems theory. Developed by sociologist Immanuel Wallerstein, it divides the world into core, periphery, and semi-periphery regions. Core countries dominate economically, using labor and resources from the periphery. This system wasn't nice, but it was a form of connection. The downside? Exploitation. The upside? Interdependence. The takeaway? The world started working together, just not always for the right reasons. The real game changer, though? Digital interconnectedness. In 1969, the U.S. military connected a few computers with ARPANET. Fast forward 50 years, and we've got 5 billion internet users. Now, someone in Indonesia can share farming techniques with someone in Brazil. Instantly. Researchers collaborate across continents. Doctors can perform surgeries via robotic arms in other countries. And yes, teenagers around the world now bond over Minecraft, Billie Eilish, and deeply cursed memes. Part 4. Metcalfe's Law and the Power of Networks. Let's talk Metcalfe's Law. It states that the value of a network is proportional to the square of the number of users connected to it. Translation: if one person has a phone, it's useless. 2 people? Now they can talk. But if 1 billion people have phones, you've got a planet-wide brain. That's what we've built. The more people connected, the faster ideas spread. Solutions get better. Markets expand. Cultures interact. Empathy grows. And innovation? It goes supernova. For example, the Human Genome Project involved scientists from 6 continents. Without interconnectedness, it would have taken decades longer, or never happened. The same goes for climate research, disaster relief, space exploration, open-source software, and yes, your ability to argue with strangers about pineapple on pizza. Part 5. Interconnectedness isn't perfect, but it's necessary. Now, let's be real. Global connection isn't without problems. We've got cultural homogenization, where global pop culture sometimes drowns out local traditions. Economic inequality, where rich nations still dominate and exploit. And misinformation, where false ideas can spread faster than facts. But the answer isn't less connection. It's better connection. We need smarter platforms, equitable access, respectful cultural exchange, and stronger international frameworks. Because global problems demand global solutions. Climate change won't be solved by one country. Pandemics need global data, not local guesswork. Financial crises ripple across the world in milliseconds. The truth is, we need each other more than ever. Part 6. The future is interconnected. Let's end with this. The story of human progress is the story of us learning how to share. Not just food or tools, but knowledge, compassion, vision. And now, we're closer than ever to a truly global mind, a network where every human being is both a contributor and a beneficiary. The question is, will we use that power wisely? Because interconnectedness is not just a technological shift, it's an ethical one. It asks us to think beyond borders, beyond tribes, beyond us versus them. It challenges us to ask, what kind of world do we want to build together? If you're fascinated by the untold stories of how human history shaped the modern world and how today's choices are shaping our future, this is the channel for you. We don't just talk about kings and castles. We connect the dots between the past, the present, and what comes next. So hit that like button, subscribe, and dive into the next video. We've got ancient secrets, revolutionary ideas, and global histories that will blow your mind. And hey, drop a comment. What's one moment in history you wish had gone differently? Because the world wasn't connected enough? Until next time, keep asking questions and keep exploring. Because history isn't over. We're still writing it.